Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Sagittarius cycle. And happy to be joined by my producer and my guest, who will be talking when I let her a little later, Sarah Salter Kelly. So we're just going to battle the earrings, but we don't really have a judge. So we just really essentially look at our earrings and go, well, who do you think is the best? So, Andy, I don't know.
I don't know. You told me to put on my most Sagittarius circus earrings, so I wore my
Well, and
balloons.
because Thursday was National Absurdity Day, I think they kind of qualify.
Yeah, we can all be carried away by a cluster of helium balloons when by looking at my earrings here.
Well, if that's not Sagittarius, I don't know what it is.
And I'm joined by my little Sagittarius friend, which is a doll with blonde hair, which is Sagittarius.
It's like a horse.
What?
It looks like a horse.
Well, she is. Well, that's true because she's a triple Sagittarius. This was modeled after my daughter, who's a triple Sagittarius. So,
Well, your daughter's not a horse, but
yeah. Well, Sagittarius has the horse's tail, which is they're all full of
it's so
moon.
cute.
I know it's so cute. I'm dying, dying. Okay, she'll go away as to not distract.
Oh, no, that wasn't that was joyful, which of course is perfect for us to talk about Sagittarius before we get down that
Well, what about your earrings?
what about
Or
oh
Sarah?
they're from Amsterdam, from a market in Amsterdam, and a friend of mine, Faye Blake, got them last year when she came to stay with me, and she was in Edmonton to do her thing, and yeah.
They're big hearts. I feel like you're
Never
sending out
thought
some
that they
love.
were hearts till you said that.
Sarah,
Doing
don't you think that
something.
they're hearts?
No,
They
I
do look like digital hearts in some ways, don't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they do. But she's got the
Hmm.
moon in Pisces, so that's why she saw it.
Hmm.
And,
We're
Hmm.
and Sarah
we're
has
all
some beautiful
Rorschach
earrings.
here.
Oh, Sarah has some beautiful earrings on too. Where did you get those, Sarah?
Well, they were a gift, and I didn't even get the earring memo. So it's a good thing I listened intuitively when I reached for the small earrings and my hand said big ones. Big
There you
ones.
go. Yeah, the thing you're forced into when you're going, the craziness that's sometimes Astro Soup, right, Andy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the craziest. Here, I'll pour some magical psychedelic tea for you.
Oh, thank you.
The whole
Uh,
tea.
well, that's interesting that you would offer it to Sarah since she's done ayahuasca.
Oh my God, that's definitely what's in there.
It tastes a little different than what I've drank in
So
the Amazon,
that,
but
what did you say as I talked over top of you?
I said it tastes a little different than what I have drank in the Amazon, but thank you very much for sharing that
Oh,
with me, Andy.
I don't know if I want to ask how ayahuasca tastes. You're a braver person than I am. Um, anyway, okay, so just a little bit so God, my brain just did what it does every once in a while, which is wander away without permission. Didn't
Mhm.
have permission to go. So, Sarah's going to be talking in a short while when I give her the thumbs up, not literally, of course. And so we're going to be talking about healing and shamanism and geez, I write notes and then I can't remember what I wrote down. So I guess that means we're just going to let Sarah share with us what her journey to has been like, focused on. Well, I'm going to let her tell her story so much better than me trying to summarize it because it's fascinating. Um, and so we're going to do the color cards like we always do, and then we will have AstroBites, which are the words that I give each sun sign on a monthly basis, just to kind of be like a talisman or a guide of some kind. Anyway, so here we are. What's in the bowl? And wow, there's a lot in the bowl. But first, let's just talk a little bit about Sagittarius and how it likes to live its life. So every month I start coming up with what I think are key messages. So Sagittarius is the wanderer, the seeker, always. Uh, needs to be jam-packed full of actual experiences. Sag is not, as a fire sign, it's not really interested in thinking about experiences. It's interested in actually doing them so it can determine what in life it actually fuels it, what brings it meaning and joy. So they can be quite lighthearted and really party animals. They really like to party. Uh, However, on a deeper level, if life isn't meaningful for them, it's like uh, life becomes not worth living if they don't feel that they're somehow connected in some way to the greater world in a way that brings light into their life, that brings meaning into their lives. Now, Andy and I've been joking around and talking. Well, I was joking around and saying that I wouldn't be surprised if Peter Pan was a Sagittarius because he kind of um, embodies that energy of always being in movement, always seeking to be doing stuff. Some of it positive, and some of it is somewhat questionable. Um, but only because Sagittarius doesn't always make a differentiation between good and bad. Now, that doesn't mean they don't come to some ethical understanding, some moral understanding in their lives. And one of their bigger challenges, and one of the biggest challenges of Sagittarius energy can be, I'm right, and you guys don't know what you're talking about. A little bit of self-righteousness. So they always have to be a little bit careful about that. Now, so during this particular Sag cycle in 2025, we move in with a strong emphasis in fire energy coupled with a strong water energy. So what does that mean from an astrological perspective? It's action, active versus receptive. So this cycle, which goes until December the 22nd, is all about how to be active and receptive at the same time, which humans have a tendency to want to make it one thing versus the other thing. And one of the values of astrology is it shows you it's just not that simple. So this time around, 1 minute you're going to feel like you want to party all day. And then the next is, I need a timeout. And that's partly because Jupiter, which is the boss of Sagittarius, or he likes the word ruler as opposed to boss. Boss is very capable. Anyway, um, it's in a water sign. It's in Cancer. So there's this push-pull between I need to get out there, do something different, but it's, can I take my blankie with me? Can I have all the things that make me feel safe and secure as part of my journey and my adventure? And the deeper message is, it's not just about the doing, it's about the feeling. It's about connecting to the actual experiences you're having from an emotion-centered or feeling-centered place. Now, it's interesting because I've been thinking lots about this, is that fire signs are really very much connected to spirit. I remember that first kind of dawned on me when this was a long time when I first started studying astrology, and someone had done some research on people who were highly intuitive or highly psychic. And the research showed that there was always a strong emphasis of fire in their charts, which seemed counterintuitive to what some of the basic understanding of fire energy is. So whenever we're in a fire sign, there's the opportunity for a lot of intuitive experiences. Now, everybody's experience of intuitive is different. I remember when I've taught classes on how to connect to your intuition, it's often that people think that this is some really whacked out weird thing that hardly anybody knows how to do. And I'll always say, so if you're driving down the road and you know what the idiot in front of you is going to do before it does it, you're psychic. It's not as mysterious as we think it is. In fact, it's very practical in its own way. That sense of knowing. So the combination that we're dealing with right now, you can actively engage in a sense of knowing. So the key messages I came away with for Sagittarius were dig deeper to find meaning, create new rituals to grow, honor your roots, laugh each and every day. I think that these things will, if you remember them, and I will be sharing them on Facebook, will allow you to really connect and integrate those energies in a meaningful way. Now, it's always interesting when we talk about rituals, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about that with Sarah. We all have rituals in our lives, we just don't call them that. But when, sometimes those rituals get stale. It's like having dinner every night at 6 o'clock. Or in my case, when I was growing up, we always had I always had dinner at 6 o'clock, and my dad would insist on listening to the CBC News on the radio while we were eating. Caused some tension because supper was the only meal that we all had together. Anyways, so we all have rituals. So now the first week of Sagittarius is very busy. This is going to be the most intense week of the entire cycle. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, we start the cycle in the new moon, which already happened just before we moved into Sagittarius. But the first major event that happens is that Saturn, is it the happy Saturn or not so happy, depending on your point of view? And this is the sign it's in. So it's what we in astrology call going direct. So it appears to be going backwards in reference to the earth, but it's not really, it's just in reference to us. And so it's been a time for us to recalibrate and rethink and re-engage with the need to take that Pisces energy and create something magical. And remember that creativity comes before you structure it, not the other way around. It's like thinking if we build a house, let's build a structure and then it'll happen. No, that's what Pisces tells us. That's not how it works. It's a sign that connects us to all that is, what I call the world of all possibilities. So Saturn comes along and often wants to try to control that when really it just needs to listen and then build a structure accordingly. Any thoughts, Andy?
I'm just loving this new newscaster vibe you got going on for what's in the bowl. That's what I was thinking. You're like, yeah, and then we got the Saturn and Pisces, and I was like, I'm really getting into it. But yeah, Saturn and
Don't
Pisces.
get into it after 51 years. Everybody's going to be bored out of their minds.
Well, weren't you? You were a journalist, which is kind of like being a newscaster, and now you're being a newscaster.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because before I started this, I told a friend of mine that I enjoy the anonymity of being a print journalist as opposed to being in front of a camera. And here I am now. Never too late. Then the day later, Mercury, which has been retrograde in both Sagittarius and Scorpio, goes direct. So have you, during that retrograde period, sorted out or connected to some of the deeper insights that Scorpio always offers us? And Sarah knows what I'm talking about because she's a Scorpio. And belated happy birthday, Sarah.
Thank you.
So here's the part where we begin to formulate an approach based on those insights. How can we apply the things that we come to understand about the need for transformation? Because Scorpio is not just about transformation, it really is about digging in the shit and getting and using the. This is where Scorpio is the sign for me of alchemy, where you take things that you think you can't make anything valuable out of, and you do it. It's on an emotional level, on a deep, profound level. And it can also be a lot about trauma, but we don't have time to get into that. Could be a whole series of podcasts all by itself. And then finally, just to lighten the mood a little bit, and this is so the Saturn was on the 28th, the Mercury's on the 29th, and then on the 30th, Venus moves into Sagittarius, and we go, whoopee, let's have some fun. This whole first week of Sagittarius is kind of a taste of exactly what the whole cycle is going to be like. So tap into these energies and follow them. So, it's kind of funny because it was Andy's idea that I start using symbols and cards to show people what we're dealing with.
Very
So
helpful.
you can see why Venus is very much, at least in this instance, when it's in a fire sign, showing much more of its air energy. And so air and fire, they percolate and they get along well. And Venus is a little tired after its journey through Scorpio and really does just want to have fun. Reminds me of this Cyndi Lauper song, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. But because this is a girl, am I allowed to say that?
You can't call it a chick, but you can call it a girl. Venus is a total chick, and you know it.
Jane Sagittarius, maybe not others. Venus in Capricorn wouldn't be a chick.
That's true. That would be a
Thank
lady.
you for
That would be a
contribution.
lady.
What did you just say?
Venus in Capricorn is a lady.
Yes. So so this first week, as I said, kind of sets the tone. And look, one of the gifts of astrology, it just shows you how complex life really is. That if we're always looking for an easy way to do anything, anything that's truly valuable really has a challenge attached to it, and challenge in and of itself isn't a negative thing. And the truth is, life happens. And especially right now, I think that it's important to remember these things because this has been a pretty up and down year, back and forth, sideways, just in terms of the energy being very fluid. First, earlier in the year, having planets in 3 or 4 planets in early degrees of signs, which is always like, the Fool in the tarot deck. You don't always know what's happening. Always know what's happening because they don't know what they're doing. And it can feel like that. So as this year comes to a close, and interestingly, I always feel the calendar year is somewhat artificial. Because especially, I'll be talking about that when we get to the Capricorn thing. The new year is in the middle of the Capricorn cycle, which never makes any sense to me, but that's just me. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about that. Now I have any further comments from the peanut gallery?
I'm gonna put some balloons in the soup during Sagittarius, so that's what's going on there.
It wouldn't survive, and then you just have rubber in the soup.
It's a party
Sorry
soup.
for being
Come
logical.
on. It's party soup. Okay.
Oh, I forgot.
Sorry, Sarah. I can be serious, but I just
Okay.
can't the Sagittarius episode.
I forgot that we were doing some absurdity stuff. So apparently you brought the absurd in. I hope to bring
I think
some.
it's great. I think it's great.
Here's some for you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, yeah.
That's everything, and I get nothing. Like, come on.
Oh, here, I got you a cayenne pepper and a green pepper.
You picked two of my least favorite things.
Oh, God.
Like,
Here, I'm putting the other balloons in there. Here you go. There you go.
no, you should put the balloons on. I love them.
No.
Oh. Okay, so now we're going to do some technical stuff and see if Leslie actually knows what she's doing, which is always an interesting thing when it comes to technology. Okay, and now we're going to do this with Sarah. Okay, so welcome, Sarah. Thanks for joining all the craziness.
It's my pleasure.
So, Sarah is the author of this really beautiful book, Trauma as Medicine. And before anybody jumps to the conclusion that we're talking about we typically think of as medicine, you must read the book so you understand what it is she means by medicine. It, um, yeah. So before we get started, I've known Sarah for a long time. Our paths haven't crossed for a very long time, but that's okay. Because what am I going to say? No, I'm just kidding. So, I have to say this book has already touched me deeply. And I have to say that when I read books, my first thought is, can this person write in a way that is enlightening and inspiring? Because there are too many books out there that offer lots of opportunity, but they do it in language that I find difficult to navigate. Not the case with this book. I would highly recommend this book because I know it's hard for people to accept the fact, but we've all experienced trauma. Wouldn't you agree, Sarah?
Absolutely. And my intention in the book was how to take experiences like trauma or our relationship with a mystery and put it into vernacular that is practical and understandable for the average human, for all of us out there. And having been exposed to personal growth or spiritual healing since the early 80s, since I was a kid. I think I've told you before, Leslie, my mom was a life coach. And, you know, so many years later, we see a lot of the same stuff just being written in different ways, right? You know, I often find that when I hear of a new healing modality, I think, oh gosh, that was called something else. You know, I'm like, oh, that's a thing now. And anyway, and so certainly when we're talking about big, hard things, and do you want me to go forward into speaking a little bit about what the book is about?
At this point, I'm because part of Sagittarius is searching for meaning, and you've been on a search like that since you were based on your book since you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping that you'd be open to talking about where that journey started, not necessarily when you were a child, but as you got a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
And because, and I don't want to be the one to tell the story, but let me just say this for anybody who's tuning in, that Sarah suffered an unimaginable tragedy at a very young age that would be hard for most people to navigate, much less use as 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 the inspiration for your journey. So I'm going to let Sarah talk now.
Absolutely. And often when I'm doing a talk, I like to just preface for those who are listening with the awareness that I do a lot of talk about trauma. So I'm really comfortable with it because I've been doing it for so long. And just to encourage those who are listening to self-regulate with their breath if I speak of anything that might feel like it's activating or challenging. Um, Remember that you can always come back to your breath. And so the search for meaning, right? It the capacity to create meaning, value, and purpose from our life's experiences is the alchemy that I think most of our souls are hungry for. And yet often we come up against roadblocks that we think are an impasse in our journeys when they're really hard or challenging. And so for me, the greatest catalyst that set me on this path would be the tragic murder of my mother, Sheila Salter, who was, brutally raped and murdered in the parking garage of her work almost 30 years ago. December 7th, it'll be 30 years. So it was at a Sagittarian time. And she was missing for about 10 days. And so my family had to navigate the trauma of the most unspeakable and the unthinkable happening. And then over the course of time, as the activation of the trauma waned, determine how to be with, this most uncomfortable and painful of griefs and experiences in a society that doesn't necessarily give us a template for that. aside from, okay, it's been 6 months, get over it, you should be done now. There's this idea that we have to do the thing to get back into being a cog in the machine. And yet, grief or trauma asks us to come undone. It's messy. And if we give ourselves permission to get messy and to fall apart, that's where we actually find the greatest gifts that can come through our soul's teachings. And so in the book, I speak to this knowing that I'm covering, about a 20-year period in the book of my own process and journey in discerning how to be with this real the reality of her loss. I was also, at the time of her death, I was 20 years old, and I was a real proud young Wiccan pagan woman. And so I had this sense that because I was in relationship with the sacred feminine, the sacred feminine had my back, which meant she had my mom's back too. And so being with that reality of you can be in relationship with what is sacred to you and horrible things can happen. And somehow they don't cancel each other out, right? That's one of those hardest pieces. And so that activated my journey, Leslie, is that over the course of time, I could feel my mother's spirit talking to me and saying, Sarah, there are no accidents. Everything happens for a reason. Trust your gut. And I would argue with her in my head because of the circumstances. I say, yeah, okay, mom, I used to believe you, but the most horrible thing that could possibly happen to a human, the thing that most women are afraid of, being accosted in a dark space by and rendered powerless. So how can I listen to you now? But she'd keep saying, everything happens for a reason. There are no accidents. And as I started to open to that, it almost felt like I was resting backwards. As I started to surrender to that as a possibility, even though it felt like it contradicted what happened, I could feel the universe guiding me. So I think that that's one of the keys for all of us is that if we can surrender to the possibility that somehow what's showing up in our life is offering us up teachings that we have come here specifically to learn, despite the pain that they might be causing us, that it is actually in the heart of that pain that we're able to expand and grow.
Well, it's interesting. I don't remember what part of the book I thought I forgot to mark it so I could comment on it. But when I started reading the book, I don't remember where it was, but my mother died when I was 37 years old, and she died at the same time that I relinquished custody of my younger two children to my ex-husband.
Mm.
And that was probably the hardest decision I ever made in my life. But uh, I had my first major spiritual experience while we were driving from Edmonton to Medicine Hat, which is because we were told we had to come right away and they don't tell you that, your mother's chances are survival are slim to none. Anyway, so get in the car. I wasn't driving, and I'm thinking I just need to get some sleep. I'm so tired. I couldn't get to sleep. I spent my entire time going, most of it talking to her and helping her cross over because we were not in the best place in our relationship at that point. And I mean, that was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. I never really thought about it. It just happened, which is, I think, so true of so many spiritual experiences. But the interesting thing about it is because I had a very challenging relationship with my mother, was when I was reading this book, and I'm going to cry. I realized that the gift she gave me in dying was that I helped her go to the place she needed to go to. And until I read this book, I never really saw it for what, I mean, not that I didn't talk about the experience, but I didn't understand the deeper meaning of it for me. So thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Leslie. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I love how those synchronicities just circle and cycle around, right?
Well,
And yeah.
I always say to people, if you think that um, you will have experienced everything or know everything or have done everything by a certain age, I'm 75. That doesn't mean that there are still not things that I can't, that are gonna, light bulb's gonna go on. Some door opens that I didn't anticipate
Hmm.
opening.
Yeah.
And and that's why I love your book, because I think that people want to put experiences in good, bad, right, wrong, success, failure categories, and then they lose the capacity to take from it what is actually meant for them.
Yeah, because there's so much. When we step out of the need to compartmentalize what is unfolded in our life and fit it into containers, which I mean is what we're taught in the Western world, then we can open more fully to what the true messages are that are coming through. And we never finish that, right? It's that practice that shows up each day. Um, and that willingness to do the hard things that like life's uncomfortable. Sometimes I think we should be taught in kindergarten, like, listen, life's hard, it's uncomfortable. Here's how you self-regulate. Here's some mindfulness techniques. It's also joyful and incredible, but know that you're here to do hard things and you can do it. Right? Because the problem with trauma or with life's challenges is that we've created this system where we have this idea that we're dependent on an external resource in order to answer an internal issue. And if we don't find the answers ourselves and become our own personal sovereign authority on the meaning making, we're in trouble, and we're in a society that where that's what has arisen. So we have to be the ones to find that compass inside of ourselves and to be driving the car.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, that means getting in touch with your feeling emotional nature, which um, many moons ago, this would have been in the early 90s, I interviewed a guy named Bob Samples who started out as a geologist and then got really fascinated by the brain and how it works. And his feeling is that the brain is a hologram, and 15% of it is devoted to cognitive thought, and the other 85% is devoted to sensing, feeling, and emotion. And so here we are. We always wonder why we're not developing all of who we are by focusing simply on what is rational and intellectual.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
say this being a person with a lot of planets in air. And so, I know what it's like to, to live in your head and to discover that that isn't the answer.
Mm-hmm. You think about all of our other sensory awareness, like when we speak of the felt sense, we're encompassing, you know, sensory, skin, touch, sound, smell, all of these other ways in which we're taking information about reality. The eyes are such a small part. And I think it's because we use our vision as one of the main ways that we compute reality, it keeps us in our head. And I have a lot of stuff in air too, so I can recognize that, the practices of being in the body, closing the eyes and taking in and listening what else is here. That's how we develop that greater capacity to expand our awareness.
Yeah, and well, the other thing is that from my perspective, we have difficulty understanding that words actually have energy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that the words that you choose are important. That old adage, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me, is just simply not true in
Mhm.
any way, shape, or form. So now I think that ritual is a really important thing, and I know that you've done a lot of work in that area, experiencing different rituals from different traditions. Would you like to talk a little bit about how ritual
Certainly.
can help deal with
Yeah.
difficulties?
I've been teaching ritual, shamanic ceremony and ritual for over 20 years, and then practicing my own since a teen. And what I'd speak to is ritual is our play. It's how we play and communicate with spirit so that we're communicating with the divine. And the most important part is that we bring our own childlike sense of wonderment to the table And certainly, depending on the tradition or the practice, there can be different protocols in place. However, we never want the protocols to be so intense that that childlike sense of wonderment is shut down. Because the more that we're in that place of awe or gratitude, the easier it is for us to be in conversation with spirit. And so ritual helps us to action our prayers. It gives us a thing to do that gets us out of our head and that then opens up our heart. So it's like, okay, so if I have something that cleanses me, a smoke cleanse, a essential oil mist, a thing that helps to purify my being as I set my intention. We're doing things with our hands. It gives us permission to make a list for the mind. So the mind is happy. We just don't want to attach too much to what we think we're supposed to sticking to the list 100%. Um, and it helps us to follow through on what an intention is and make space for listening. And
Oh,
when we're in
you do
that
that
state of
magical thing, listening
listening, right? And so
to ourselves. Not just,
exactly like the invocation or the prayer or the intention, all those things are important. Speaking what it is that you're seeking or wanting to share with the universe is important. But the most important part is when we shut up.
tell me that. I'm
When
kidding.
we accept that we don't actually have all the answers and we do the listening part. And that listening part, and I go more into detail in this in my book, certainly. Um, I share some of the rituals that helped me to come to heal my experience with my mother's perpetrator and to come to peace with that within myself. And it required a lot of ritual and a lot of listening and being with what's uncomfortable, right? And ritual doesn't have to be complicated. You had shared earlier, it might be before the record was on, but just we have rituals such as we eat at a certain time, we do something at a certain time, right? The ritual often has a beginning, a middle, and an end, an intention setting, and then the meat of whatever it is that what's the thing that we're going to do? Maybe we're going to drum and light a fire and sing and ask for help. Then the listening, then the gratitude, the closing and giving thanks, trusting that whatever shows up in a ceremonial space or in a ritualistic space, we have to let go of our attachment to the outcome of what we think that should be. It's kind of like when we do a meditation. You don't sit down for a 20-minute silent meditation with, like, here's the thing I'm going to have at the end of it. The whole intention is that you shut up.
Oh, it reminds me, I was once doing an introduction to meditation. I was out of town doing sessions and did this thing. And I said, like try to set everything aside and it's almost for some people it's impossible, probably because they're frightened of the experience. They don't understand what it is. And so I get to the end of this meditation and everybody's sharing what their experiences are. And the woman said, all I could see was my list of things to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't remember what I said to her at the time. I certainly didn't.
Mhm.
I wasn't critical of her. And people often say, "Well, how come that person had that experience and I didn't?" I said, "Because you're not them. You're you, and your experience is important to you, and it's important that you understand that." And
Yeah.
that is hard because everybody has all kinds of preconceived ideas. It happens even in astrology. People have preconceived ideas. And practicing astrology is a ritual.
Yeah,
It's a ritual.
absolutely.
Um, and so we all have and so I guess what I'm taking some time to get to is for people to pay attention to the things that they do on a consistent basis and then ask themselves what in that ritual is important to them, because I don't know that people often even really know how to acknowledge what's of value to them.
I think that that's true sometimes, Leslie. And then I think sometimes people might also be aware of an issue that has been present for a long time that they might think is beyond their control, or maybe they're just supposed to get over it or let it go. Any of those ideals that are a part of our kind of our Western way of seeing things. And my encouragement is create a ritual and call it in. Create a ritual to address the things that we need to address head on. And that can be taking a half an hour once a week and sitting down with. It could be somebody that you're in relationship with that's in conflict. It could be not being happy in your work. It could be something from the past that is still feeling present in your body. Sit down and start being with some of the feelings so that they can move through you. Because when we shut it down, as you know, we carry it, doesn't go away. And
True.
it sounds like this month is a perfect month for
Exactly.
us to be with some of those feelings, because Sagittarius helps us to go so deep.
Yes. So, and we could keep talking forever. I would like it if you would come back sometime and actually create a ritual for us to do, if you'd be open to that
Certainly,
sometime in the new
certainly.
year. Just to give a little bit of a practical demonstration
Yeah,
and give people some
certainly.
tips on how to create a ritual for themselves, because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
And when you get two people with plants and air together, talking could take a long time. So anyway, so this is the part where thank you, Sarah, so much for coming on, and I'm so happy that you're open to coming back
Yeah,
so that
absolutely, Leslie.
I
Thanks
can
for
torture
having
you
me.
again. I can
It
torture
sounds
you.
good.
And so now one of my favorite rituals for the podcast is every week we pull a color card, because color is something that's easy for people to focus on and to visualize. I'm going to say this: if you don't like the color that gets chosen, then you need to ask yourself why that is. What does it remind you of? So first of all, we're going to pick one for the entire Sag cycle.
I'm gonna pour you some balloon tea.
Well, okay, so here's what we're going to
Here you go,
do.
Sarah. It's a ritual I do. It's just
Okay, where's the three bubbles? Oh, I need bubbles, don't you?
that was a fascinating segment, by the way.
Thanks. Well, I
I
knew it
learned
would
I
be.
learned I learned a lot. I shut up and I learned a lot.
Are you saying that when you talk, you get in the way?
Well, Sarah was saying that we should be quiet and listen, and I mean, she was saying listen to our guides or our intuition, but the lessons are far-reaching in there.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Want some more,
Oh,
Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. I'm not focusing on what I'm doing, so it's showing me stuff that's for me.
What are you distracted?
I'm always distracted. Okay. Oh, this is lovely. This is for the entire Sag cycle. It's cherry. Live an extraordinary life. If that's not Sagittarian, I don't know what is. No comments from the peanut gallery?
Sarah, what do you think about the color cherry in Sagittarius?
Well, I think the leading an extraordinary life part certainly is exceptional, because I'm such a rooted into the cycles of the land. There's this part of me that's like, but there's no cherries growing right now.
It's not the fruit. Oh, gee. And of course, now you're not going to like this one either. I'm just teasing you, Sarah. So this
Here's a cherry balloon for
this
you.
one is plum, and of course, purple is Sagittarius color,
Mm, mm,
and it's overcome your challenges.
mm,
Very
mm,
apropos.
mm, mm.
That
I'm
is
going to
so
let them.
fitting for Sarah's segment.
What?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's so
absolutely, Leslie, absolutely.
So, and those cards come from the secret language of color cards, which I encourage everybody to get, because very simple to use. And sometimes when we start talking about these deeper things, people think it's more complicated than it really is. And then every month, and soon I'm going to be in my newsletter going to be adding Astro Insights to the AstroBites. We haven't got there because it's been such a learning curve for me to be doing this. So again, these are words, and they're words that you can use in any way you would like, which of course, Andy always says, well, what does that mean? So it's like a talisman. It's like a word you can meditate on. You can take some time to see where it sits in your body. Do you resist it? Because, as Sarah so aptly put, life is full of challenges. And so everything that I channel, because this is not necessarily astrological, this is more like channeling information, is there's no apparent logic to it. Because there are times when logic, quite frankly, is boring. Right? Would we not all agree with that? Since we all like magic so much, right? Okay. So for Aries, the word is move. For Taurus, it's reflect. Gemini is listen. Cancer is relax. Leo is hope. Virgo is expand. Libra is joy. Scorpio is consider. Sagittarius is initiate. Capricorn is share. Aquarius, be open. And Pisces, create. Now, you can take the word from your sun sign. If you know where your planets are, you can play with some of the other ones. Or you can just see if that word resonates for you, even though it doesn't seem to have any direct connection to your sun sign. It's just done that way because it's an easier way to do it, but that doesn't mean you can't play with all of the words on that list if you want to, or the ones that really speak to you. And I would say, please pay attention to which one you went, no, that's not that one.
I did my
What?
sorry. I did my sun, moon, and rising, and it was listen, consider, create.
I like that. I didn't do that for myself yet. I always have challenges when I get to Aquarius. Okay, well, again, thanks everybody for joining the slight amount of absurdity that Andy provided with her earrings, for the wisdom and the feeling that Sarah shared with us. I was going to say Sarah shared with us, but that's wrong. And my insights, which I hope were helpful. And of course, I always like to end with a quote, and I always call it wrap it up with up in capital letters. This is a funny one. It's important. Doing nothing is very hard to do. You never know when you're finished. That was said by Leslie Nielsen, who actually
I just had a delayed reaction. That's pretty funny.
That's a quote from Leslie Nielsen, who was a Canadian actor.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what movie he was in. Naked Gun.
Yeah.
And a bunch of others. I mean, he had quite a lengthy career in Hollywood, but that's really funny. I laughed and laughed.
That's pretty funny. Thank you for that.
Anyways, thanks again, and until the next time, be true to yourself.